Captain Jake Morrison gripped the control panel as his ship shook violently through the asteroid field. The Columbus was not built for fancy flying, but Jake had no choice. The distress signal was getting stronger, and someone needed help out here, in the dark between stars. His crew of 12 humans had been exploring this sector for 3 months without finding anything interesting. Now they might have found something very interesting indeed. The signal came from a ship unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It was smooth and white like polished bone with curves that seemed to flow like water. The ship was twice the size of the Columbus, but it was drifting without power. Jake ordered his communications officer Lisa Grant to send a message on all frequencies. The response came back in a language that sounded like music mixed with static. Jake made the decision that would change everything. He brought the Columbus alongside the alien vessel and prepared to board. His security chief Ryan Carter was not happy about this plan, but Jake was the captain and the final choice was his. They suited up and crossed the short distance between ships through the vacuum of space. What they found inside made them stop and stare. The aliens were tall and thin like stretched rubber bands. Their skin was pale blue and seemed to glow softly in the dark. They had 4 arms and large black eyes that took up most of their faces. But what surprised Jake most was how weak they looked. They were barely moving and seemed to be dying from something Jake could not understand. The alien who seemed to be in charge raised one of his 4 arms and spoke in broken English. His name was Kethvar, and he was an ambassador from something called the Zelani Empire. His ship had been damaged by what he called a minor solar flare, and his crew was dying from radiation poisoning. Jake looked at Ryan, and both men realized something strange. The radiation levels that were killing these aliens were lower than what humans dealt with every day on Earth. Jake ordered his medical officer, Dr. Lisa Grant, to help the aliens. She worked quickly to stabilize them while Jake talked with Kethvar about where they came from and what they were doing out here. The story that emerged was incredible. The aliens were part of a vast galactic community that had existed for 50,000 years. They had never encountered humans before, and they were shocked to learn that Jake and his crew came from a world they had marked as uninhabitable. Kethvar explained that Earth had been surveyed by their automated probes centuries ago. The probes had sent back data showing a world so dangerous that no intelligent life could possibly survive there. The gravity was too strong, the atmosphere was toxic, the radiation levels were deadly, and the weather was far too violent. The planet was covered in dangerous predators, and the surface was constantly being reshaped by earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The galactic community had classified Earth as a Class 12 death world and marked it as off-limits to all civilized species. Jake laughed at this description of his homeworld. He told Kethvar that humans had been living on Earth for millions of years and had never thought of it as particularly dangerous. The aliens looked at him with their large black eyes, and Jake realized they thought he was joking. When they understood he was serious, their fear was obvious. Dr. Grant finished treating the alien crew and reported to Jake that their biology was incredibly fragile compared to humans. Their bones were hollow like birds, and their skin was so thin that normal sunlight would burn them. The radiation that was killing them was less than what humans absorbed during a normal day on Earth. She also noted that their immune systems were almost non-existent, and they required constant medical support to survive. Ryan Carter demonstrated basic human strength by lifting a piece of equipment that required mechanical assistance for the aliens to move. He also showed them his sidearm, which fired projectiles that would be considered weapons of mass destruction by galactic standards. The aliens were terrified by the casual way Ryan handled what they saw as incredibly dangerous tools. Kethvar asked Jake if all humans were as powerful as his crew. Jake explained that his crew was actually considered average by human standards and that there were many humans who were much stronger and tougher. He described human soldiers, athletes, and workers who regularly perform feats that would be impossible for most galactic species. The aliens listened in growing horror as Jake talked about humans who could survive in environments that would kill most other species instantly. The conversation was interrupted when more alien ships arrived. They were responding to Kethvar's distress call, but they were also coming to investigate the unknown ship that had rescued him. Jake found himself face to face with representatives from several different species, all of whom were shocked to learn that humans existed. They had never encountered a species that evolved on a death world, and they were not sure what to do about it. The aliens held a quick conference in their musical language. Before Kethvar turned back to Jake, he explained that this was the first time in their recorded history that they had encountered a species from a Class 12 death world. The implications were staggering and would need to be reported to the highest levels of galactic government. Jake was invited to accompany them to the galactic capital, where the council would decide how to handle this unprecedented situation. Jake accepted the invitation, knowing that this moment would change everything for humanity. As the Columbus followed the alien ships toward the galactic core, he wondered if humans were ready for what they would find among the stars. He also wondered if the galaxy was ready for what it would find in humanity. The journey to the galactic capital would take several weeks, and Jake used that time to learn everything he could about galactic civilization and prepare his crew for what was coming. The aliens were fascinated and terrified by everything they learned about humans and Earth. They could not understand how any species could survive in such harsh conditions, let alone thrive and build a technological civilization. Jake tried to explain that humans did not see Earth as particularly dangerous, but the aliens could not accept this. To them, Earth was a nightmare world that should have been uninhabitable, and humans were impossible creatures that should not exist. As they traveled deeper into galactic space, Jake began to understand that humanity's arrival would send shockwaves through a civilization that had never encountered anything like them before. 3 months after first contact, the alien expedition arrived at Earth, with the most advanced protective equipment their civilization could build. Chief Surveyor Zixtal led the team of scientists, while Commander Alex Bennett served as the human liaison. The aliens came prepared for what they believed would be the most dangerous scientific mission in galactic history. They were not disappointed. The alien ship remained in high orbit around Earth while smaller shuttles carried the research team down to the surface. Each shuttle was equipped with shields that could deflect asteroid impacts and armor that could withstand the heat of stellar coronas. The aliens wore environmental suits that looked like small spacecraft and carried enough life support for several days. They were prepared for anything except what they actually found. Commander Bennett met them at the landing site, which was a simple field in what humans called a nature preserve. The aliens immediately began taking readings and were shocked by what their instruments told them. The gravity was crushing by their standards, the atmospheric pressure was dangerous, and the radiation levels were lethal. The fact that Bennett was standing there in simple clothing without any protective gear seemed impossible to them. Marine Sergeant Nina Rodriguez was assigned to escort the research team through the preserve. She had been briefed on alien physiology and knew they were fragile, but she was still surprised by how careful they had to be. The aliens moved slowly and carefully, as if they expected the ground to explode beneath their feet. Every sound made them jump, and every shadow made them scan for threats. The first major incident happened when they encountered a family of deer grazing peacefully in a meadow. The aliens immediately went into emergency protocols and began discussing evacuation procedures. Their instruments classified the deer as dangerous predators based on their size and muscle mass. Rodriguez had to explain that deer were actually prey animals that humans considered harmless. The aliens could not understand how any creature that large could be considered harmless. Things got worse when they reached the stream that ran through the preserve. The aliens detected bacteria and microorganisms in the water that they classified as deadly pathogens. They were amazed that Earth's ecosystem was not only surviving, but thriving in what they saw as a toxic environment. Rodriguez explained that these microorganisms were normal and necessary for Earth's ecosystem to function properly. Dr. Kevin Walsh joined the expedition to explain how life on Earth had evolved. He was an evolutionary biologist who had spent years studying how species adapted to survive in harsh environments. The aliens listened in fascination and horror as he described how Earth's life forms had developed incredible resilience through millions of years of surviving disasters that would extinct entire galactic civilizations. Walsh explained that Earth had been hit by massive asteroids that blocked out the sun for years. The planet had been covered in ice multiple times and had experienced volcanic eruptions that changed the climate for centuries. Deadly plagues had swept across the planet, killing most species while survivors adapted and became stronger. The aliens realized that what they considered extinction-level events were just part of normal life on Earth. The weather demonstration was particularly memorable. The alien scientists had been monitoring atmospheric conditions and detected an approaching thunderstorm. They immediately activated emergency protocols and prepared to evacuate to their ship. The storm was classified as a Category 5 disaster that would require months of recovery time. Rodriguez and the other humans continued their work as if nothing was happening. When the storm arrived, the aliens huddled in their emergency shelter while the humans worked in the rain. Lightning struck nearby trees and the aliens expected massive casualties. Instead, they watched in amazement as the humans continued their normal activities in conditions that would kill most galactic species. The wind speeds alone were enough to knock down most alien buildings, but the humans seemed to enjoy the cool breeze. Captain Susan Torres arrived to demonstrate human military training exercises. She had been asked to show the aliens how human soldiers prepared for combat, but she had to tone down the demonstration significantly. Even the basic training exercises were classified as impossible survivability tests by alien standards. The obstacle course that human recruits completed on their first day would challenge the most elite alien special forces. Torres showed the aliens how human soldiers learned to survive in environments ranging from Arctic cold to desert heat. She explained that human military training included combat in toxic environments, survival after nuclear attacks, and recovery from injuries that would be instantly fatal to most species. The aliens watched training videos that they classified as horror films showing humans surviving in conditions that should have killed them immediately. The cultural exchange revealed even more disturbing information about human society. The aliens learned that humans engaged in activities they called sports, which involved deliberate physical conflict and risk of injury. They watched videos of humans jumping from aircraft, climbing mountains, and racing vehicles at speeds that would be considered weapons of mass destruction. The aliens could not understand why humans would voluntarily put themselves in danger for entertainment. Human literature and media were equally shocking to the alien visitors. Stories that humans considered exciting adventures were classified as psychological warfare by alien standards. The aliens were particularly disturbed by human horror stories, which described scenarios that were considered realistic threats by galactic security services. They could not understand how humans could enjoy entertainment that was based on their worst nightmares. The expedition's final report was classified at the highest levels of galactic security. The aliens had confirmed that humans were not just from a death world, but were the apex predators of the most dangerous planet in known space. Every aspect of human biology and culture was adapted for survival in conditions that would challenge the most advanced galactic technologies. Word of the expedition's findings spread throughout the galactic community, despite official secrecy. The news that humans existed and were everything the reports claimed created panic in some sectors and excitement in others. Military leaders realized that human soldiers would be unstoppable, while peaceful species worried about what humans might do with their incredible capabilities. The Galactic Council called an emergency session to discuss the human situation. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to debate what should be done about a species that could survive anything the galaxy could throw at them. Some called for immediate diplomatic contact, while others suggested that humans should be contained before they could spread throughout the galaxy. Meanwhile, on Earth, human leaders were learning about the galactic community and trying to understand their place in it. The revelation that humans were considered terrifying by galactic standards came as a surprise to most people. Humans had always thought of themselves as relatively fragile creatures who survived through intelligence and cooperation. Learning That they were actually the toughest species in the galaxy would take some getting used to. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine humanity's future among the stars. The news of humanity's existence created chaos throughout the galactic community. Species that had lived in peace for thousands of years suddenly found themselves debating whether the galaxy's most dangerous predators should be welcomed or contained. The Galactic Council. Chambers had never seen such heated discussions, and the debates went on for weeks without resolution. Speaker Merazen of the Etherian Collective was the first to address the council about the human situation. Her species had evolved on a peaceful world with no predators and no violence. They had achieved civilization through cooperation and had never experienced war. The very idea that an entire species could evolve through constant conflict was horrifying. To them, she argued that humans should be quarantined immediately before they could spread their violent nature throughout the galaxy. The Etherian proposal was supported by several other peaceful species who feared that human contact would contaminate their cultures with violence. They pointed out that human entertainment included simulated warfare and that human children played games that involved mock combat. These species had never experienced anything like human competitive sports, and they saw activities like boxing and football as evidence of humanity's savage nature. War Marshal Brechtool of the Corvan hegemony had a very different perspective on the human situation. His species had built their civilization through military conquest, and they respected strength above all else. The reports of human capabilities impressed him greatly, and he saw humans as either the ultimate threat or the perfect allies. He argued that the galaxy needed strong defenders and that humans could fill that role better than any existing species. The Corvan military was already making secret plans to recruit human soldiers and acquire human weapons technology. They had analyzed the reports from the Earth expedition and realized that even basic human military equipment was superior to their most advanced weapons. A human soldier equipped with standard gear would be unstoppable by galactic standards, and a human warship would be virtually invincible. Ambassador Tony Garcia led the human diplomatic mission to the Galactic Council. He was a career diplomat who had spent his life negotiating between different human cultures and governments. Now he faced the challenge of representing humanity to species that saw humans as either monsters or weapons. Garcia worked tirelessly to convince the council that humans were capable of peaceful cooperation despite their combat abilities. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos accompanied Garcia as military advisor and demonstrated that humans could be peaceful despite their capabilities. She was a decorated combat veteran who had served in multiple conflicts, but she was also a skilled negotiator who had helped end several wars through diplomacy. Santos showed the council that human military strength could be used to protect the innocent rather than dominate the weak. The human delegation faced a major challenge when Frank Peterson arrived at the galactic capital. Peterson was a leader in the human independence movement who believed that humanity should claim its rightful place as the galaxy's dominant species. He argued that humans had evolved to be apex predators and that they should not apologize for their strength. His speeches created panic among peaceful species and gave ammunition to those who wanted to contain humanity. Peterson's message resonated with many humans who felt that their species had been underestimated for too long. He pointed out that humans had survived and thrived on a world that other species considered uninhabitable. He argued that this proved human superiority and that the galaxy would be better off under human leadership. His followers began calling themselves Deathworlders and adopted the name as a badge of honor. The situation became more complicated when the syndicate of merchants realized the economic implications of human contact. Trademaster Jexkai led the syndicate which controlled most galactic commerce. He quickly understood that human-made products would be incredibly valuable in the galactic market. Items that humans considered ordinary would be luxury goods for species that could not survive in harsh environments. Human tools and equipment were built to survive conditions that would destroy most galactic technology. A simple human hammer could function in environments that would require specialized equipment for other species. Human vehicles were designed to operate in extreme weather, and rough terrain that would challenge the most advanced alien craft. The economic potential was enormous, and the syndicate wanted to control it. Dr. Rachel Burke published a controversial research paper that changed the debate about humanity's place in the galaxy. She was an anthropologist who had studied human culture and evolution for decades. Her paper argued that humanity's deathworld traits were exactly what the galaxy needed to solve several major problems that had plagued galactic civilization for centuries. Burke pointed out that the galaxy had been unable to expand into large areas of space because the conditions were too harsh for most species. Humans could colonize worlds that other species considered uninhabitable and could work in environments that required expensive protective equipment for aliens. She argued that human expansion would actually benefit the galaxy by opening up new resources and territory. The paper also addressed the threat of the Void Swarm, which had been consuming outer rim worlds for decades. The swarm was a collection of self-replicating machines that had appeared from deep space and had proven resistant to all galactic weapons. Burke suggested that human military tactics and technology might be effective against the swarm where conventional galactic forces had failed. The debate reached a crisis point when several species began preparing for war. The Corvan hegemony was mobilizing their fleets while the Etherian collective was calling for a preemptive strike against Earth. Other species were choosing sides, and the galaxy was dividing into pro-human and anti-human factions. The situation was becoming dangerous for everyone involved. Ambassador Garcia worked desperately to prevent an interstellar war. He met with representatives from dozens of species and tried to find common ground. He emphasized that humans wanted to be partners in galactic civilization rather than conquerors. He offered to share human technology and knowledge in exchange for peaceful cooperation and mutual respect. The breakthrough came when Garcia proposed a compromise that would satisfy both sides. Humans would be granted membership in the Galactic Council but would accept restrictions on their military expansion. Human colonies would be limited to worlds that other species could not inhabit, and human military forces would be used only for defensive purposes. In exchange, humans would share their survival technology and help defend the galaxy against external threats. The proposal was controversial, but it offered a path forward that avoided war. The peaceful species could accept human membership if humans agreed to restrictions, while the military species could benefit from human defensive capabilities. The merchants saw opportunities for profitable trade, while the politicians saw a way to avoid the chaos of galactic war. The final vote was scheduled for the next council session, and the outcome would determine humanity's future among the stars. Garcia knew that this was humanity's best chance to join galactic civilization on equal terms. The alternative was isolation or war, and neither option was acceptable for a species that had just discovered they were not alone in the universe. As the debate continued throughout the galactic community, the humans on Earth prepared for whatever decision the Council would make. They had learned that they were feared and respected in equal measure by the galaxy's older civilizations. Now they would discover if fear or respect would determine their future among the stars. The Galactic Council's debate about humanity became meaningless when the Void Swarm launched its largest attack in recorded history. The mysterious machines had been quiet for months while the galaxy argued about human membership, but now they struck with overwhelming force. 17 core worlds came under simultaneous attack, and the combined fleets of the galactic community rushed to defend their homes. Admiral Colven commanded the Grand Fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Glory. He was a veteran commander who had fought the Void Swarm for decades and had never achieved more than tactical victories. The machines adapted to every weapon and tactic the galaxy used against them. They learned from each battle and became stronger, while the galactic forces grew weaker with each engagement. The Battle of Nexus Prime became the largest space battle in galactic history. Over 3,000 ships from 17 different species engaged the Void Swarm in a desperate attempt to stop their advance toward the galactic core. The battle raged for days as the aliens threw everything they had at the machines. Their most advanced weapons barely scratched the swarm's hulls, while return fire tore Through galactic ships like paper, Admiral Colven watched in horror as his fleet was systematically destroyed. The machines seemed to know exactly what weapons would be used against them and had already developed countermeasures. Energy weapons that should have vaporized mountains bounced harmlessly off swarm hulls. Kinetic weapons that could crack planets were absorbed by adaptive armor. The aliens were fighting an enemy that had already won before the battle began. The situation became desperate when the swarm deployed their boarding machines. These were smaller versions of the main ships that could cut through any hull and disgorge mechanical warriors into alien vessels. The galactic forces had no effective defense against boarding actions because their species had never developed close combat techniques. They relied on technology and long-range weapons that were useless once the enemy was inside their ships. Captain Danny Clark received the distress call while his small human task force was still debating whether to join the galactic community. Clark commanded 12 human warships, including his flagship, the Defiant. His force was tiny compared to the Grand Fleet, but he made the decision that would change galactic history. He ordered his ships to jump to Nexus Prime at maximum speed. The human task force arrived at the battle to find the Grand Fleet in full retreat. Thousands of alien ships were fleeing from hundreds of swarm vessels that pursued them relentlessly. The aliens expected the humans to retreat as well, but Clark had other plans. He ordered his small fleet to form attack formation and charge directly at the swarm's main force. The alien commanders thought the humans had gone insane. 12 ships attacking hundreds of enemies was not brave but suicidal. They watched in amazement as the human warships accelerated toward the swarm at speeds that would kill most alien crews. The human ships were built like fortresses with armor that could withstand asteroid impacts and hulls that could survive solar flares. The first exchange of fire revealed the difference between human and alien military technology. The swarms' weapons that had torn through galactic ships barely dented human armor. The human warships had been designed to fight in the vacuum of space where any hit could be fatal. They were built to survive multiple weapon impacts and keep fighting while alien ships were disabled by single hits. More importantly, the human crews did not panic when facing overwhelming odds. They had trained for extinction-level scenarios. Their entire lives and desperate battles were normal for them. The aliens were fighting machines that learned from their tactics, while humans were fighting machines that had never encountered chaos and unpredictability. Commander Beth Miller led the first human boarding action against a swarm mothership. Her team cut through the hull with equipment that was standard for human emergency situations but revolutionary by galactic standards. They fought through environments that would kill most alien species from radiation exposure alone. The machines had never encountered enemies that could survive in their toxic internal atmosphere. Staff Sergeant Carlos Martinez and his Marines engaged the swarm's mechanical defenders in hand-to-hand combat. The machines were designed to fight enemies that used ranged weapons and advanced technology. They had no programming for dealing with humans who preferred close combat and simple weapons. Martinez's team used shotguns and explosives that were too crude for the machines to analyze and counter. The turning point came when Engineer First Class Andy Foster discovered the swarm's weakness. The machines could adapt to any predictable pattern, but human tactics were forged through millions of years of chaotic warfare. Humans had learned to fight dirty and unpredictably because that was how they survived on their death world. The machines could not adapt to tactics that had no pattern or logic. Foster realized that the swarm's adaptation technology was actually their greatest weakness. They had become so sophisticated that they could not handle simple, brutal tactics. Human weapons that should have been obsolete by galactic standards were effective, because the machines had never encountered anything so primitive. A human soldier with a knife was more dangerous than an alien with an energy weapon. The battle turned when the human boarding teams began capturing swarm ships instead of destroying them. The aliens had never managed to board a swarm vessel and survive, but human teams were not only surviving, but taking control of enemy ships. They used the captured vessels as weapons against the rest of the swarm fleet Admiral Colvan watched in amazement as the human task force began winning a battle that the Grand Fleet had considered hopeless. The 12 human ships were systematically destroying hundreds of swarm vessels using tactics that no galactic commander would have considered. The humans fought like the predators they were, and the machines could not adapt fast enough to counter their aggression. The final phase of the battle began when Captain Clark ordered his fleet to target the swarm's command ship. The massive vessel was protected by layers of adaptive armor and defensive systems that had never been penetrated. Clark's solution was typically human in its simplicity. He rammed the Defiant directly into the command ship's hull and led a boarding party into its core. The fight inside the command ship was brutal even by human standards. Clark and his team fought through corridors filled with toxic gas and deadly radiation while mechanical defenders tried to stop them. The humans used their Deathworld evolution to survive conditions that would have killed any other species. They reached the command ship's core and destroyed it. With simple explosives, the destruction of the command ship caused a cascade failure throughout the swarm fleet. The machines that had seemed invincible suddenly became confused and vulnerable. The surviving alien ships returned to the battle and began destroying the disabled swarm vessels. The tide had turned and the galaxy was saved by the species that many had wanted to exile. Admiral Colvan sent a message to the Galactic Council, reporting that humanity had achieved what the combined fleets of 17 species could not. 12 human ships had defeated a swarm fleet that had destroyed thousands of alien vessels. The galaxy's opinion of humanity changed in a single day from fear to desperate gratitude. The Battle of Nexus Prime proved that humanity's Deathworld heritage was not a threat to galactic civilization but its greatest asset. The species that had evolved to survive the impossible had saved the galaxy from its greatest enemy. The debates about human membership in the galactic community were over, and the real question became how quickly humanity could take its place as the galaxy's protector. The galaxy transformed. Overnight after humanity's victory against the Void Swarm, species that had called for human containment now competed desperately for human alliance and protection. The Galactic Council underwent emergency restructuring to accommodate humanity's new status as the galaxy's primary defenders. Earth received a permanent council seat with veto power over major military decisions. Admiral Patricia Hayes became the first human to command a multi-species fleet when she was appointed leader of the new Frontier Defense Force. Her fleet included ships from dozens of different species, but human vessels formed the core of every battle group. The combination of human tactics and alien technology created a force that was more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Hayes faced her first major test when the Defense Force was ordered to investigate strange signals from the outer rim. The expedition discovered ancient ruins on a dead world that had been devastated by some unknown catastrophe. The ruins were filled with deadly traps and environmental hazards that would have killed most alien exploration teams. Human troops were able to navigate the dangers and recover artifacts that revealed the history of a lost civilization. The economic revolution began when entrepreneur Jack Morrison established the first human-alien joint colonies on worlds that had been considered uninhabitable. Morrison had made his fortune in extreme environment construction on Earth, and he saw opportunities throughout the galaxy. His company began building colonies on worlds with crushing gravity, toxic atmospheres, and deadly radiation levels. The Deathworld colonies became the galaxy's most productive settlements within months of their establishment. Human colonists could work in conditions that required expensive protective equipment for alien workers. They could harvest resources from environments that had been considered too dangerous to exploit. The colonies produced rare materials that were essential for advanced technology but had been too costly to obtain. Dr. Amanda Foster led the Cultural Integration Project that helped alien species understand human society. Her work prevented several diplomatic incidents when alien dignitaries misinterpreted human recreational activities as military demonstrations. She had to explain that human children played games that involved mock combat because competition was how humans learned to survive and excel. Foster's biggest challenge came when she tried to explain human entertainment to species that had never experienced conflict. She organized cultural exchanges where aliens could observe human sports and games in a controlled environment. The aliens were amazed by human physical capabilities, but they gradually learned to appreciate the skill and strategy involved in human competitions. The medical revolution began when human doctors started treating alien patients who had been considered terminally ill. Dr. Sarah Blake pioneered techniques that used human medical knowledge to save alien lives. She discovered that many alien diseases were caused by environmental factors that humans routinely survived. Her treatments were considered miraculous by galactic standards but were simple applications of human survival medicine. Blake's work led to the development of hybrid medical technologies that combined human resilience with alien precision. Human immune systems were studied and adapted to help alien species develop resistance to diseases that had plagued them for centuries. The medical advances extended lifespans and improved quality of life throughout the galaxy. The exploration boom began when human survey teams started mapping regions of space that had been considered too dangerous for alien exploration. Captain Mike Rodriguez led the first human expedition into the Maelstrom Nebula, which was filled with radiation and gravitational anomalies that destroyed most alien ships. Human vessels were built to survive solar flares and asteroid impacts, so they could navigate the nebula safely. Rodriguez's expedition discovered dozens of habitable worlds inside the nebula that had been hidden from galactic civilization for millions of years. The worlds were rich in resources and perfect for human colonization. The discovery doubled the known habitable territory in the galaxy and opened new opportunities for expansion and development. The crisis came when the Galactic Council received reports of a new threat from deep space. An ancient alien artifact had been discovered in the Andromeda sector, and it was destabilizing nearby star systems. The artifact was surrounded by energy fields that were lethal to most known life forms. Several alien research teams had been killed trying to approach it, and the situation was getting worse. The Council debated sending a massive fleet to contain the artifact, but the energy fields made conventional approaches impossible. The artifact was defended by automated systems that had been built by a civilization that had vanished millions of years ago. The weapons were more advanced than anything in the current galaxy, and they had already destroyed several alien task forces. Commander Steve Thompson volunteered to lead a human expedition to neutralize the artifact. Thompson was a specialist in extreme environment operations who had worked in the cores of dying stars and the event horizons of black holes. He assembled a team of humans who had experience working in the most dangerous conditions imaginable. The expedition included pilot Lava Chun, who had flown rescue missions through solar storms, and systems analyst Greg Williams, who had designed computers that could function in the vacuum of space. The team was equipped with standard human survival gear that was considered experimental technology by galactic standards. They prepared for a mission that alien experts considered impossible. The approach to the artifact was made through energy fields that would have killed most alien crews instantly. The human team used their Deathworld evolution to survive radiation levels that disrupted alien equipment. They navigated through gravitational anomalies that would have torn apart most alien ships. The artifact's defenses were designed to stop civilized species, but not creatures that had evolved to survive anything. The final confrontation took place inside the artifact itself, where the ancient aliens had built a doomsday device that threatened to destroy entire star systems. The human team fought through environmental hazards that included toxic gases, crushing gravity, and temperatures that would melt most alien equipment. They reached the artifact's core and shut it down using techniques that combined human intuition with alien technology. The success of the mission proved that humanity had become indispensable to galactic civilization. The species that had once been considered too dangerous to contact was now the galaxy's greatest protector. Human colonies were spreading throughout previously uninhabitable regions. While human technology was revolutionizing everything from medicine to exploration, the Final scenes showed the integration of human and alien societies on New Terra, humanity's first major colony world. Human children played with alien classmates in environments that would challenge most adult aliens. The human children taught climbing and swimming while the alien children shared advanced mathematics and philosophy. The playground was a symbol of the new galactic civilization where strength and intelligence worked together. The school's principal was Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a human educator who had developed the first integrated curriculum for multi-species education. She watched human and alien children learning together and realized that the galaxy's future would be shaped by this new generation. The children who grew up together would build a civilization that combined the best traits of every species. The graduation ceremony included students from 12 different species, who had learned to work together despite their different capabilities. The valedictorian was a human girl named Amy Foster, who had been born on New Terra and had never known a galaxy where humans and aliens were separate. Her speech talked about the future when species differences would be strengths rather than barriers. The story concluded with a view of the galaxy as it existed after humanity's integration. Human colonies dotted the frontier regions while mixed fleets patrolled the borders. The Void Swarm had been defeated, ancient threats had been neutralized, and new worlds were being discovered every day. The galaxy had learned that its deadliest species could also be its most protective. The rise of the Deathworlders had indeed sent shockwaves through the galaxy, but the final result was not destruction but transformation. Humanity had not conquered galactic civilization but had become its guardian. The species that had evolved to survive the impossible had used their strength to protect those who could not protect themselves. The galaxy was safer, larger, and more prosperous than ever before, and the future held unlimited possibilities for continued growth and exploration.